All right, so we started recording, and so this is a part of a project called Talossa Talks, which is a Seneschal's initiative, and it's just about helping Talossans to get to know one another because we're very familiar with our Wittenberg, with our messaging board, but it's a good idea to put faces with names and try to get to know one another on a deeper level, as long as we're all willing to. So to get started, would you like to ask the first question, or would you like for me to start off?
I think you should ask the questions.
Very well. What is your proudest accomplishment?
Proudest accomplishment. Oh, probably coming out. I'm trans, and coming out was a big deal. After years and years of hiding it, coming out was a huge deal. So I would say that's my biggest accomplishment.
Well, I would say that, you know, being gay, I was in the closet for, well, knowingly for about a decade or more. And the process of coming out was extended. I came out to some of my family, and then those family members told other family members. But we all kept it a secret from my father because we weren't sure how he would take it. A Vietnam vet, very traditional viewing masculinity, and so it took another year before um, I came out to him. And in coming out to him, it was just for everybody else, it was on the phone and telling them because I couldn't take it any longer being in the closet. But with my
Mhm.
father, I felt like I had to come to talk to him face to face. And
Mhm.
so I remember um, that time where I drove over to my parents' place and asked my father to turn off to mute the basketball game that he was watching.
Right.
And I told him, and his reaction was better than I expected. It has, um, at least initially, it hasn't always been good over the years, but
Right.
initially, of course, my fears were overblown.
Yep.
Because that was what dominated my time in the closet, was imagining how horrific the reactions from my family would be.
I felt the same way.
So
But
I
in
can
my
imagine.
in my case, I just ripped the band-aid off. I just came out and I was like, you're gonna have to live with it or get out of my life. It's one or the other. It's terrifying, but I'm glad I did it.
I can imagine it's a huge relief.
Absolutely.
All right. So another one. What is your favorite book to read?
Ooh, Frankenstein.
That
I
is an
really like
interesting.
Frankenstein.
And so, how long has that been a favorite?
Oh, since I was in my teens. Uh, I think in part I kind of identify with the monster, being trans, feeling like I was the only person like me,
Hmm.
and seeing the monster just wanting to have a normal life. Obviously, I didn't take it to the extent that he did. He was a little more violent, I think, than I was, but yeah, I could kind of understand his struggles, and so that's why it resonated with me.
Um, I'm trying to think. This is one where I'm not sure what I would say for favorite book. Um, the one that I keep coming back to is it's not, some complicated book or anything, but I just really enjoy it. And it's a science fiction book called Moving Mars, by Greg Bear.
Hmm.
And he is kind of a part of a group of science fiction writers who have a certain style, like Arthur C. Clarke and Larry Niven. Um, and so, but the book is really about a young woman who it kind of tells her story of from college up until becoming the leader of Mars.
Wow.
and and so it kind of tells her life story. And it also talks about different family structures, um, nanotechnology, and then it gets into um, what I suspect is completely made up because I haven't been able to find anything on it, but is some kind of manipulation of quantum mechanics. And I think the author made that all up, but that's the really fun part that I enjoy is when science fiction authors try to predict how current technology is moving.
Right.
Um, and Arthur C. Clarke, who is one of my favorite authors, was really good at that. He
Hmm.
predicted things, obviously not, he's not clairvoyant, but he was really good at, analyzing the trends. And so that book was when it was talking about the settlement of Mars, which is something that's probably 50 to 100 years away for us. Um, he kind of thought about how they would do it differently than Europeans when they came over to the New World. And so he kind of thought about pilgrims coming for economic reasons, and
Hmm.
then the family structures would be different because different families would economically intermingle and become one larger family. So it was really interesting to
Hmm.
read, especially when you're like 16 or 17, and it hasn't gotten old as I've read
Mm.
it 20 years later.
Right. We could be on this question all day long because I love reading.
I am I have been commuting using the bus, and I'm not from an urban area, so I'm not familiar with public transit use. And so I've been had a lot more time to listen to audiobooks.
Hmm.
And so have you heard of an author called Charles Stross? I don't
That
know if you
name
like,
isn't.
well, he has a trilogy of books about the which deal with the growth of AI and something called the singularity.
Mm.
And so he wrote these books in the early 2000s. And since they've come out, I've been telling myself, oh, I would like to read those. But I
Mhm.
never did. Like 15
Mhm.
years, I've been saying, oh, you should read those. And I finally started listening to one in and on Audible. And it was a combination of trying to predict the future. And I love science fiction because it also has a bit of raunchiness in it, personally. And so I enjoy body humor. And so this author has all of that. He's got these remarkably inventive ideas about how artificial intelligence is going to cause humans to change. But he's also, of course, um, not forgetting that humans have these base desires that are not going to go away
Right.
just because technology. And so he has this combination of humor, horniness, and technology that are wonderful. And that's what I love about science fiction in general. And it's something that usually gets glossed over when people talk about it. I was
Mm.
like, oh, no, no, no. Science fiction usually has some kind of raunch to
Yeah.
it. And so I very much enjoyed that author, Charles Stross, because he's incredibly funny and he really has this fully fleshed out idea of humans in the future. It's not just this clean place.
Right.
Uh, what are two of your pet peeves?
Oh, just two of them? One of them that drives me crazy is when people say I don't know why, but you'll have a conversation and they'll go like um like I just want to wring their necks. Just say what you're saying. Stop saying all the time. That's one of my big pet peeves. Um, and then I just did it. The second pet peeve is drivers. I'm a cyclist, so I see a lot of nasty stuff that drivers do, stupid things that drivers do, and it just drives me crazy. The way they don't signal, the way they speed, the way they're on their phone, all kinds of stuff going on. So drivers would be another pet peeve of mine.
Hmm. Well, I think for me, one, and I understand the part because I I I actually when I was in college and I still remember taking a public speaking course and the the instructor she said, you have to, and see, I just did one too. Those, like those things that you, rather than doing that, it's okay to just temporarily pause. You don't have to use the connector. Just stop for a second and gather and then continue. And so that's usually what happens with me is I will pause if I'm thinking, but other times I do the or the and so that I understand that pet peeve. One of mine is, and this is, I work in administration, and so sometimes people in administration, the people you are coming into contact with, will make assumptions about you based on the role that you're in. And so they will assume that the role that you're in is not one of significant authority and therefore means that your capabilities are that they can speak to you in a certain way, which is not always respectful. And I've been in administration off and on for 15 years, and um, it is always unfortunate when your first encounter with someone is them making assumptions about you and they don't know you just on the work that you're doing. And so whenever I am, going to a restaurant and I'm making sure that I am treating people well, no matter what their role is, because the that is not something on which to judge the person, because we all have to work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I have been sensitive to because of that, because I have had people judge me based on the work that I do. And sorry, I'm very attentive now to the ums. the
Sorry.
so no, that's okay. Uh, it's just that's something that has always bothered me. And then another pet peeve actually is, just now, I've just now stopped driving for the most part, because I have never, living in Metro Vancouver, this for me is the first place that I felt like I could reliably use public transit.
Hmm.
And so, of course, I'm noticing now when I'm hearing the bus honking at some drivers who are blocking us from moving, I'm now feeling how you feel as a cyclist, that drivers are not always attentive to other people, and how they are getting to and from. So I would say that I am understanding that more as a public transit person now. Um, so
We're
those are my
basically
two.
on the same team.
Yes. Oh, I even see people who will cycle to the bus stop or to the to the train, and they will put their bicycle on the front of the bus. So we
Hmm.
are on the same team. Yes,
We are on the same team.
I'm just. Oh, here we go. So,
Oh,
what is your favorite type of cuisine? What is your favorite type of food that you eat?
I really like Chinese, especially the spicier, like, is it Szechuan that's spicier? That
Hmm.
sort of genre of Chinese food. I like spicy Chinese food. Yeah.
And do you like spicy food in general?
As long as I'm not like stunt eating, I don't want to eat something that's uncomfortable to eat. But if it's spicy, yeah, I'm okay with it.
I am a fan of spicy food. I have uh, when I was living in Alaska, that we used to have this Indian place we would go to called, I think it was called Namaste. And um, not only was it affordable, which is always good
Mhm.
to me, but they give you large servings, which again is really wonderful because I love leftovers. Um, but they also, when I first went there, they will have these spice settings and they have the number of chilies. And so they have
Mhm.
one, two, three, four. And then they have I said to them, I said, would you please make it at the spice level that Indian people would eat? And so I assumed that that was number five that wasn't listed. And it was because it was when I was eating it, I could not tell whether it was the temperature heat or if it was the spice heat, which was exactly what I liked. I was very happy. I mean, I wasn't happy a day or two later, but I was very happy when I was eating it. And so I personally, it's not that I like pain, but I like the endorphins that
Hmm.
come from eating spicy food, and it really does make me feel good. Um, I mean, the flavor is fine too, but it's really this feeling that you get when I eat spicy food, and so it's odd, kind of hijacking your brain with food in that way. But my favorite food, well, I was actually talking to my husband a few days ago, and I confessed to him because I wasn't sure what my favorite food was until I learned what the specific cuisine was. And I like Tex-Mex. That's my favorite.
Ah,
Um,
yeah.
I love making chilaquiles and things like that. Burritos,
Oh yeah.
nachos. I love what I called Mexican food. And the YouTube video was like, that's Tex-Mex. That's not Mexican.
Yeah,
So
there's a
it's like,
difference.
yes. And I was like, I love Tex-Mex food. And
Hmm.
so that's something that is kind of one of my comforts is Tex-Mex. And I honestly didn't know that because I just when I was adding it all up, I was like, oh, these foods are in this category. Okay. So that was nice. All right. Well, it looks like we're coming close to 30 minutes. I wanted to ask you this one. What is what's your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood memory was the time I was in an elevator with Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage.
Wow. That is quite a childhood memory there.
So I'll try to explain it. Growing up, even now, I'm a big pro wrestling fan. I've actually tried pro wrestling in my early 20s. Obviously, didn't work out very well. Um, so we went to a pro wrestling show in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, at this little venue. I think it was called the Titan Dome or something. We saw the show. My mom and I were there at the show. Show's over. We have to get out to the car. We'd never been there before, so we got lost.
Hmm.
We went down this hallway thinking we can get out to get to the car. And we went to go into the elevator, and here comes Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage, and they walk into the elevator with us. And at the time, I was a little kid, so I was still thinking, it's not a work, it's real. And these two guys were supposed to be enemies. And I remember them being in the elevator behind us and kind of talking trash to each other
Oh.
while the elevator was going up. And when I got out of the elevator and went to the car, I thought I was just in an elevator with Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. That's my big childhood story.
Well, that is quite a memory. I can imagine that really sticking. Um,
Yeah,
I
those were
definitely
big
I do not
guys.
have anything to match that with celebrities. I don't. This was more in my later time, but it is not something that I knew better to be embarrassed about until recently. But the when I was in school, I entered an essay contest,
Hmm.
um, and the contest was a part of Kentucky had one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in the country at the time, and so the the state government decided to do a public campaign to encourage abstinence.
Hmm.
And so basically, they asked for people who, students who were still virgins, to write in and say, why are you still a virgin? And I didn't really think about that part of it. I was just like, oh, look, it's an essay contest and I like to write, and I'm a
Hmm.
virgin. So I went ahead and entered that. And, a few months later, I get called to the school office, which is not a good thing. At least I didn't think. And they had the people from the state, and they, told me that I was one of the four people that had won the contest, and they had these storyboards and everything, and we were going to do this commercial. So I had basically, obviously I didn't tell them that the reason why was because I was in the closet, and it's just not a good place to come out. So and do anything. So it really wasn't a choice. More, it was just the circumstances of society. And so we did this um, commercial, and I think the people in the commercial knew that I was LGBT because it turned out that they went and bought me some clothes, and one of them had a giant rainbow on it across the
Oh.
chest. I was like, oh, that's cute. They know. So I was like, I knew I wasn't fooling anything in the closet. This is my cat Enzo. He likes to jump up and get into the screen. You can only see his back right now, but yeah, he likes to get
Hi,
all over
Enzo.
the camera. Um, so that happens, and then I really it was fun, but I just didn't think that, oh right, I'm announcing to 4 million people that I am a 16-year-old virgin. I'm telling them my sexual status. I didn't really even consider it. I was just thinking, wow, you won an essay contest and you
Hmm.
get to do this cool thing. So they did these posters as a part of the campaign. It was called "Get a Life First, Wait to Have Sex." Okay, so that poster, I graduated high school in 1999.
Hmm.
My home county had that poster up. The health department had that poster up for 10 years. Um, and I was just, you know, I just didn't appreciate that I was putting it on the eternal record that I was a virgin for a very long time. So that was something that was fun, but also a bit embarrassing. Um, well, Audrada, this was actually very really fun. And I didn't never know how things are going to go,
Hmm.
but I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you did too.
Yeah.
And I'm also looking forward, Captain, to our archery, our virtual shoot
Oh,
in early May or whenever if it needs to be rescheduled. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, we got to get things back on track with that, I think.
Well, I know that you trash talk too, like Macho Man and Hulk Hogan with
I do.
virtual archery.
I do.
Okay.
I trash talk in real life too.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to shooting some arrows with you. And I am just thank you again for participating. And I'm hoping that once Talossans see us in conversation, that they'll be interested in doing so too.
I hope so. I'd like to see some more faces.
Yes. All right. Well, you have a very good rest of your day.
You too. Bye.